The garden of the stately two-story colonial home in Savannah, Georgia, shimmered under strings of golden fairy lights. Laughter and clinking glasses filled the humid August air as guests gathered for a lavish baby shower. But for Elise Thornton, 32, the scene was a suffocating reminder of her invisibility. Her hands, calloused from years of sketching blueprints, arranged pastel pink roses on a dessert table while her heart sank deeper into a familiar ache. Elise, an award-winning preservation architect, had just been featured in Southern Living for her meticulous restoration of the historic Willow Creek Manor. Yet, no one in her family had called to celebrate. To them, she was just the eldest daughter who hadn't settled down, forever overshadowed by her younger sister, Abigail. 7 months ago, Elise's world had crumbled. The faint heartbeat she'd clung to during weekly ultrasounds vanished, leaving her hollow. The miscarriage had confined her to bed for weeks. The sight of an unassembled walnut crib from France mocking her from the corner of her bedroom. Her mother, Margaret, had called on the third day after Elise's hospital discharge, her tone brisk. "Have you cleared out that room yet? Don't dwell, Elise. It's unhealthy." No questions about her grief. No offer of comfort. Only a warning not to upset Abigail, who was newly pregnant and needed calm. Elise's husband, Nathan, was her only anchor. He sat by her bedside, reading poetry in his low, steady voice, cooking oatmeal, and catching tears she hid in her pillowcase. Nathan's aunt, Vivian, a sharp-witted woman in her late 50s with a mane of chestnut hair, called nightly. "Don't fake strength for people who don't see you," Vivian said. "Cry if you need to. Scream if you must." Those words were lifelines in a family that had never felt like home. Elise's parents, Margaret and Henry, had always dismissed her ambitions. When she earned a full scholarship to study architecture at Columbia, they'd scoffed. "Why go so far to complicate your life?" But when Abigail was accepted into a local community college, they hosted a banquet. Elise's achievements, her designs, her accolades, were frivolous. Even her pregnancy, a flicker of hope to bridge the gap, was met with indifference. Now, Abigail's baby shower was the family's crowning event, and Elise had been summoned to help. A handwritten note from Margaret arrived with the invitation. "Elise, join us Saturday. Abigail needs your eye for decor. You're her sister." After all, no mention of Elise's loss. No acknowledgement of her pain, just an expectation to serve. Elise arrived at her parents' home that afternoon, arms laden with peony-themed decorations Abigail had requested via text. The house, framed by magnolia trees, looked serene, but it held memories of rejection. When Elise had announced her pregnancy here, Margaret's blank stare had cut deeper than words. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with forced joy. Abigail, radiant at 26, sat on a velvet armchair, her slight bump already a family treasure. She giggled as Henry presented a cake topped with an ultrasound image. "Does the baby look like me, Elise?" Abigail asked, her voice bright but edged with something unreadable. Elise forced a smile. "Maybe." "Elise is here," Margaret announced, as if introducing a stagehand. "Did you bring the decor? The garden tables are ready. Set them up. Will you?" Abigail shouldn't strain herself. Elise nodded, murmuring, "Sure." She carried the boxes of ribbons, lanterns, and silk flowers to the kitchen, her chest tight. Nathan started to follow, but she whispered, "I'm fine." He retreated to the porch, his gaze fixed on the horizon. As Elise strung lights through an oak tree, she overheard Margaret inside. "Elise is good at these things, isn't she, Abigail? Lucky you've got a sister who handles the details." The words stung. Elise's fingers trembled as she tied a bow, her knuckles paling. The party began at dusk. Relatives and friends arrived, their compliments showering Abigail's glow and the family's blessing. Elise stayed near the dessert table, plating macarons and nodding politely. No one mentioned her loss. No one noticed her exhaustion. The only person who broke through was Caleb, Abigail's husband, a 30-year-old pediatric resident with a quiet intensity. He approached as Elise adjusted a centerpiece. "Elise, are you holding up okay?" His eyes held no pity, only sincerity. Startled, she nodded. "I'm okay, Thanks. He hesitated, but Abigail's voice cut through. Caleb. Come take photos. He gave Elise a lingering look before turning away. As twilight deepened, Abigail sauntered over. All sweetness. You're a lifesaver, Elise. This party wouldn't be the same without you. Before Elise could respond, Margaret chimed in, patting her arm. That's what sisters do, always there. No fuss. Elise met her mother's eyes, feeling the chasm between them widen. The praise was hollow, a script she'd heard her whole life. After the guests left, Elise began dismantling the decorations. The night air chilled her skin, and Nathan draped his jacket over her shoulders. Ready to go? He asked softly. 1 minute, she replied, standing beneath the oak, watching the lights flicker like fading dreams. She wasn't sure what she still hoped for, a kind word, an embrace, or just an acknowledgement that she was more than a prop in their story. The gender reveal party was held on a balmy Sunday at a rented estate outside Savannah. Its wraparound porch adorned with hydrangeas and its lawn stretching toward a cypress grove. Abigail wanted a chic yet cozy vibe, and Margaret, as always, deemed Elise the perfect planner. Elise nearly declined, but Nathan urged her to attend one last time. To close the book. She arrived early, arranging mint green and coral balloons on a linen-draped table with a sealed box that promised a dramatic reveal. Guests trickled in by 2 p.m., their chatter lively. Elise moved quietly, avoiding lingering glances. Nathan and Vivian were there, Vivian's jaw tight whenever Margaret passed. Abigail emerged in a flowing chiffon dress, holding Caleb's hand and a microphone. Thank you all for being here. She beamed. Today's not just about our baby's gender. It's about celebrating the people who make our family whole. Elise was refilling lemonade pitchers when Abigail's voice sharpened. And I want to give a special shout out to my sister, Elise, who pulled this all together, even with everything she's been through. Scattered applause followed. Elise nodded, her smile strained. Then Abigail's lips curled into a smirk. Oh, and you know why Elise had so much time to help? She's not tied down with a baby anymore. She paused for effect. You know, since she lost hers. Abigail laughed. A high, performative sound. So, this is kind of a welcome back to freedom party for her. Right? The crowd froze. Elise's breath caught, her vision narrowing. Nathan stood, but she raised a hand to stop him. Guests shifted uncomfortably. Some chuckled awkwardly. Others looked away. Caleb stood rigid, his face pale. Elise stepped toward the stage, her voice low but steady. What did you just say? Abigail? Abigail blinked, feigning innocence. Oh, come on, don't be so serious. It was a joke. Everyone knows, don't they? A joke? Elise's voice trembled. You mocked my child's death in front of everyone. Do you even see how cruel that is? Margaret rushed over, seizing Elise's arm. You're embarrassing us. Elise, stop this. I just want respect. Mom, Elise said, her eyes burning. Margaret's grip tightened. You always make a scene. If you can't behave, go back out there and act normal. Elise yanked her arm free. You've never cared about my pain. To you, it's always Abigail. I lost my baby, and you didn't even hold me. Margaret's face flushed. You're so dramatic. No wonder nobody wants you around. Elise staggered back, stunned. If that's how you feel. Suddenly, Margaret shoved her shoulder. Get out if you can't act right. Elise stumbled, her heel catching the edge of the porch railing. The world tilted. She heard Nathan's shout, Vivian's scream, and the rush of wind as she fell. The sky spun above, and in that fleeting moment, Elise wondered if her mother had finally seen her, just to cast her away. Elise awoke in a sterile room at Savannah Memorial Hospital, the sharp scent of antiseptic stinging her nose. Her throat was raw, her chest heavy, her right arm was in a cast, and her back throbbed. Nathan sat beside her, eyes bloodshot, clutching her hand. Elise, he whispered, you're okay. The doctor reported fractured ribs, a lumbar injury, and a mild concussion, but she'd recover. A tear slid down Elise's cheek. She'd survived a fall from the second floor. Nathan steadied a glass of water to her lips, then said, someone's here to see you. But only if you're ready. Who? Elise croaked. Caleb, Nathan replied. He's talked to the police. There's something you need to know. Caleb entered, his face haunted. Elise, I'm so sorry, he said, sitting down. I stayed quiet too long. But I can't anymore. Her heart pounded. What happened? It wasn't an accident, Caleb said, his voice breaking. I suspected something after your miscarriage. But I didn't want to believe it. Then I overheard Abigail and your mom in the kitchen when you visited. They swapped your tea bags. Abigail said it was to calm you down. Elise's eyes shut tight. The nausea, the palpitations, she blamed stress. Caleb produced a folder. I saved some tea bags and had them tested at my clinic. They contained compounds that disrupt pregnancy. Her blood ran cold. It was deliberate. There's more, Caleb said. I found texts on Abigail's phone. She wrote to your mom. 3 more days. And it's over. She's too fragile to fight. Nathan's knuckles whitened as he gripped the chair. We gave everything to the police. He said. The fake prescription Margaret used. Kitchen security footage. Caleb's testimony. They're building a case. Tears streamed down Elise's face. Not from pain but from betrayal. Caleb bowed his head. I was a coward, staying silent for family. But you don't deserve this alone. Elise nodded faintly. Her heart was shattered. But the truth was free. A woman with short blonde hair and a calm demeanor entered. Elise, I'm Lauren Hayes, your attorney. Nathan squeezed her hand. No one will hurt you again. He whispered. Elise looked at him, gratitude anchoring her. Blood had pushed her off a ledge. But strangers had reached out to pull her back. This time, she'd hold on. The Charleston County Courthouse loomed like a monument to truth. Its high wooden ceilings and stark fluorescent lights casting a chill over the packed courtroom. Elise Thornton, now 32, sat beside her attorney, Lauren Hayes, her fractured ribs still aching beneath a tailored blazer. Across the aisle, her mother, Margaret, father, Henry, and sister, Abigail, sat at the defense table, their faces a mix of defiance and dread. 7 months had passed since Elise's fall from the second-floor porch. A fall orchestrated by her own mother after Abigail's cruel mockery of Elise's miscarriage. The revelation that followed, that her miscarriage was no accident but a deliberate act by her family, had shattered Elise's world. Today, she would face them, not as a daughter or sister, but as a survivor demanding justice. The prosecutor, a wiry man with a voice like steel, laid out the case with chilling precision. Audio recordings captured Margaret and Abigail whispering about the tea plan in the family kitchen. Text messages, recovered from Abigail's phone, were projected on a screen. 3 more days. Mom, she'll lose it. She's too weak to suspect. Prescription receipts under a false name, linked to Margaret, showed purchases of a rare alkaloid known to disrupt fetal development. Security footage from the family's Savannah home showed Abigail swapping tea bags before serving Elise. Her smile as cold as the act itself. Caleb, Abigail's now estranged husband, took the stand, his voice heavy with guilt. I stayed silent too long, he admitted, detailing how he'd tested the tea and uncovered the truth. Each piece of evidence was a blade, carving through Elise's heart, notably because it hurt more, but because it forced her to confront a betrayal she'd once tried to deny. Abigail, 26, crumbled first. She claimed she was just following Mom's orders, insisting she didn't know the tea was harmful. But when the prosecutor read her text aloud, she's done in 3 days. She's nothing without that baby. Abigail's facade collapsed. She sobbed, head in hands, silent for the rest of the trial. Margaret, however, held her chin high, her voice icy as she addressed the judge. Everything we did was for the family's legacy. Elise was never meant to carry the Prescott name forward. Henry, ever the silent enabler, muttered only, I did what my wife asked. Their motive, laid bare by Lauren, was a $1.2 million land trust tied to Elise's late grandfather's will, stipulating that only the first grandchild bearing the Prescott surname could inherit. Elise's unborn child had been a threat to their plan, and they'd erased it to secure Abigail's future. When Elise took the stand, the room hushed. Her voice, steady but laced with pain, filled the space. I lost my child, my trust, and nearly my life. I don't want their pity. I want my baby's existence to be acknowledged. I want justice. She locked eyes with each of them. Margaret's glare, Henry's averted gaze, Abigail's tear-streaked face, and felt a quiet strength rise within her. The trial stretched 3 grueling weeks. Each day a battle to hold her composure. Nathan, her husband, sat behind her, his hand a constant anchor on her shoulder. Vivian, Nathan's fierce aunt, whispered encouragements during breaks. You're stronger than their lies. Elise, keep standing. The verdict came on a rainy November morning. Abigail was sentenced to 4 years in prison for intentionally harming a pregnant woman and conspiracy to interfere with reproductive health. Margaret and Henry each received 5 years for conspiracy, familial abuse, and concealing a criminal act. The Prescott estate, a sprawling mansion in Savannah's historic district, was sealed for acid investigation. The land trust, the root of their greed, was placed under state control. Its conditions unmet with no eligible heir. Abigail gave birth to a son, Noah, in prison that March. The healthy boy was placed in temporary foster care. His future uncertain. Caleb, who had filed for divorce days after the truth surfaced, fought for and won custody, vowing to raise Noah free of the Prescott legacy's shadow. As the gavel fell, Elise exhaled, the weight of years lifting. She stepped outside, rain mingling with tears on her cheeks. Nathan pulled her close, his voice soft. You did it. You're free. But freedom, Elise knew, wasn't just the absence of chains, it was the courage to rebuild from ashes. By spring, Elise and Nathan had left Savannah's ghosts behind, settling in Tybee Island, a quiet coastal town where the ocean's rhythm soothed old wounds. Their new home, a shingle-style cottage with a wraparound porch, sat steps from the beach. Nathan, a landscape designer, planted a garden of sea lavender that bloomed purple under the Georgia sun. Elise's studio, bathed in light from wide windows, became her sanctuary. Her spine, still tender from the fall, ached when storms rolled in. But the pain no longer scared her. It was a scar, proof she'd survived. Elise hadn't spoken to Margaret, Henry, or Abigail since the trial. No letters, no calls, no apologies, just silence. As vast and final as the horizon. She no longer craved their validation. The family she'd once clung to was a mirage. But in its place, she found something real. Her sketches, once abandoned, came alive again. Designs for airy nurseries, coastal homes, and community centers. Each stroke of her pencil was a reclaiming of joy. One June afternoon, Vivian arrived with a surprise. A 9-year-old girl named Sophie. Her auburn hair tied in a loose braid. Her hazel eyes carrying a quiet sorrow. Sophie's mother, Vivian's friend, had died in a boating accident. And her father was absent. The girl, in temporary state care, had heard of Elise's story from Vivian and asked to meet her. Do you like to draw? Elise asked, offering her sketchbook. Sophie's face lit up. I draw lighthouses, she whispered. They help ships find home. The words caught in Elise's throat. That afternoon, they sat on the porch, sketching side by side, the sound of waves weaving a gentle bond. Sophie's lighthouse, with its bold stripes, was a beacon of hope Elise hadn't expected. That night, Nathan cleared the dinner table and met Elise's eyes. What if we adopted Sophie? He asked. His voice steady but warm. Elise froze, not from doubt but from a rush of certainty. Are you sure? She asked. Are you? He countered, taking her hand. I saw you today, Elise. You're ready. We're ready. With Lauren's legal expertise, they began the process to become Sophie's guardians. By fall, the paperwork was complete, and Sophie moved into the cottage, her laughter filling rooms once haunted by grief. One October morning, Elise woke to Sophie rummaging through the living room, hunting her sketchbook. It's on the kitchen counter, Elise called, smiling. Sophie grinned, relieved. I thought it vanished like my cookies. Nathan's voice floated from downstairs. Those cookies found a home in Daddy's stomach. Not thin air. Their laughter, bright and unguarded, was a miracle to Elise. She'd once believed joy like this was lost forever, stolen by a family who'd poisoned her tea. pushed her from a porch, and mocked her pain. But here, in this sunlit home, she was whole. The adoption hearing in April was simple, sealed with a judge's warm smile. Sophie, now officially their daughter, flung her arms around Elise and Nathan. "Can I call you Mom and Dad now?" she asked. Her voice small but sure. Elise's eyes brimmed. "Always, sweetheart." They celebrated in the cottage's backyard, stringing paper lanterns and slicing a lopsided vanilla cake Nathan had baked. A Polaroid of the three under a live oak became their first family photo, pinned above Elise's desk. One evening, as Elise washed dishes, Sophie hugged her from behind. "Mom, is family when you don't have to pretend to be someone else?" Elise knelt, meeting Sophie's gaze. "Exactly. Family is where you're loved for you." Sophie nodded, whispering, "I think I found mine." The words were soft, but to Elise, they rang like a bell of rebirth. Elise had spent years chasing a family that never existed, enduring betrayal that nearly broke her. But Sophie, a child who'd known loss too, taught her that family wasn't blood or legacy, it was the hand that steadied you. The trust in a child's eyes. The choice to love without conditions. Nathan, who'd never wavered, and Sophie, who'd dared to hope again, were her home. From a fall that could have ended her, Elise had built a life of light and truth. Her journey proved that even the deepest wounds could heal, leaving not just scars but stories of resilience, love, and the family you choose.